I'm going to go to, so we'll get that going as well. So Kate, you're on board. Go ahead. Maybe Kate's not on board.
Yeah, I think we lost her now too. She's not in the participants.
Oh my goodness.
We're off
Yeah,
to a rocky start
Yeah,
today.
unfortunately, yeah. So
all ends well though.
I hope so as well. One of the things that Kate wanted me to talk about was some of the ingredients in beta caryophyllene. So
Okay.
beta caryophyllene can come from a number of different substances. There's a whole collection of different herbs and spices which originate have beta caryophyllene in them. Things like all the herbs you know about, but it also contains. It's also found in guava, uh, uh, grapefruit, avocado, and all these represents actually Mediterranean foods. So that if you followed a strictly Mediterranean diet, you would get high concentrations or you get large amounts of beta caryophyllene in your foods. Now, the ideal dosage of beta caryophyllene is in the order of about 4 milligrams per kilogram. So if you're a 50 or 60 kilogram person, then that's about 200 milligrams that you would get in a day. But very few people can get that much. I mean, it's even included in broccoli, of all things, as well. So there's a number of different foods and products that beta caryophyllene comes from, but you just don't eat enough in order to get the penetration that you really need to get by eating foods. And so that's why we've developed this highly bioavailable product that makes it just taking a few milligrams multiplies the availability and the immediate effects of beta caryophyllene within the body. Kate, you're on board now? Nope.
No, no, her out. Yeah, she just dropped again.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've got a couple of screenshots to share with you. I think that it could be very interesting. So this is what I was talking about before, the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet is has all of the substances in it actually have these particular anti-inflammatory effects. We've always talked about the Mediterranean diet as being a healthy diet, but in fact, there's a lots of ingredients in the Mediterranean diet that add to its particular benefits. Now, in particular, beta caryophyllene is being one of strong entity, but it's also some other ingredients as well as resveratrol and some polyphenols as well as some flavonoids. They all contribute and they all activate the endocannabinoid system in the body. And so it's just kind of curious that we're talking about the Mediterranean diet as the right mixture of fats, of proteins, and of carbohydrates when there could be the actual the primary benefit is actually on the chemical substances that are included in there. So you've got, the CB2 receptor is activated by the beta caryophyllene, and you get these inflammatory mediators that decrease the inflammation of the body, as well as these anti-pain factors that go into it. One of the back actions of the beta caryophyllene is actually to inhibit the breakdown of the endocannabinoid substances within our body. We've got AEA and 2-AG, which are compounds that are natural of our own endocannabinoid system. And beta caryophyllene actually blocks the breakdown of those substances so that they elevate and they rebalance so that they become a more balanced and a more homeopathic, a more homeostatic mechanism of the body. And the other part I wanted to mention was the CB2 receptor. She asked me to talk about the CB2 and the CB1 receptor. In particular, the CB2 receptor is really misinformed. Now, the CB2 receptor is in all peripheral immune cells. Every one of our immune cells has a CB2 receptor in it, but in particular, the CB2 receptor are located on mitochondria. They are located in the brain, extensively in the brain, and they're located in the hippocampus, the cerebellum, the thalamus, the brainstem. All over the brain is incorporated with beta CB2 receptors. And so there's an opportunity for CB2 agonists like beta caryophyllene to activate those receptors and orchestrate a number of biological and behavioral changes, as well as controlling for our immunity and immune reaction, as well as our metabolic factors. Now, here's a paper that I just found that was magnificent about beta caryophyllene alleviating diet-induced neurobehavioral changes in rats. Now, it had these dramatic effects, including decreased visceral fat, but it actually increased activity and muscle weight in these animals. So that's a remarkable change for them. And it improves the neurobehavioral recommendations, as well as acting as a neuroprotective agent for the body. So that's all the pieces that I wanted to get across to you. I just wanted to share that those pieces of information and get those across. And Kate, are you ready to take over?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I think my phone going in and out, but the conversation that we were having last night about the meta diet and the CB1 and the CB2, and I said something to you about it being the CB1 being like the air traffic controller, and you said, no, I beg to differ. Don't go there. Don't simplify it, Kate. Can you explain that kind of how you did yesterday? Because then for some reason I got it. and I don't know if anybody else is wrestling with this situation. It just might be my brain. But I think I'm a very visual, what do you want to call it? So I really like the charts that you just explained to us. But, how does that work as far as the CB, what you're saying with the CB1?
Well, actually, the CB1 receptor is, you know of it as its fame with respect to THC. The THC has the psychoactive effects. It causes hallucinations, but it can increase your mood. It can improve your relaxation. It acts as an anti-inflammatory. It also works as an analgesic very effectively, and it's anti-cancer in particular. It also interferes with, it also offers neuroprotection. Now, those are all the good things that happen are mainly in the brain, but in the rest of the body, it turns out that the CB1 receptor is highly related to inflammation, and it coordinates, for instance, upregulation of the CB1 receptor is key and important in obesity. And a broad spectrum of diseases. It is distorted in metabolism. It causes munchies, and it stimulates appetite. So, and it also inflames the liver as well. And so the primary drug that was found years ago, in about 2006, there was a drug that was found that actually blocked the CB1 receptor, and it was very, very effective at weight loss and it mitigated against a lot of diseases, but unfortunately, it also caused depression, and that depression caused some suicides, and so the drug was taken off the market. It was in Europe. It was not in America. But the point I want to make is that the CB1 receptor is generally inflammatory in its origin and its basis, except in the brain. Now, it turns out that there are multiple types of CB1 receptors. There's a brain type of CB1 receptor, and then there's a visceral type of CB1 receptor, and they work a little bit differently in the body.
So let's go back to the munchie thing. What you're saying is this CB1, when you're taking the THC, is what creates the hunger and the munchies.
Yes.
So if you're not doing the THC, you're doing beta caryophyllene, how does the CB1 work?
Well, if you do CBD, now CBD actually inhibits to some degree, the CB1 receptor. So it mitigates against the THC effect of the psychoactive effect of it, but it also tempers the munchies as well. So, but CBD does not include weight loss, and it does not include munchies effects on it. Whereas you get in, and the reason this is complicated, but it may be that it's a CB2 effect, but it may be a CB2 mild effect. Whereas beta caryophyllene is a very strong CB2 effect that does impact appetite and metabolism very strongly.
So, Dr. Blair, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I was like, and while you figure your audio stuff, I also had some thoughts and questions on CB1 and just the whole thing. If you want me to kind of fill in here a little bit, and some thoughts that I had in my mind before as well.
Sure, let's get a discussion going.
So, right. So the thing with obviously from what I've understood, BCP is activating the CB2 and we're getting certain benefits. The CB1 being activated with THC, now it's sort of a loaded gun, right? If it's done right, if it's fine-tuned correctly, it does have positive effects.
Yes.
I don't know, just for example, whatever I tried, if I keep it under 5 milligram, you get certain positive benefits. You go above that, then it gets into this munchies and sort of non-productive, lazy mode. So my question is, like, there may be some way of fine-tuning the CB1 effect. And the bigger question is there a way to activate or manipulate CB1 without THC or psychoactive effects? Or is there another way? Like BCP is doing primarily CB2s. So in conjunction with that, is it possible to manipulate or control a little bit of your CB1 without getting the downside of THC? Like that could be, another great breakthrough if it's possible. I'm not sure if it's possible.
Well, there are some herbs that have a negative effect on the CB1 receptors. For instance, milk thistle is an herb that has a suppressant effect on the CB1 receptor. And CBD actually has an anti-CB1 effect. It's a negative agonist. So that can modify the effects of, and often people do take cannabis, and they take different quantities of THC and CBD to counteract the effects of the THC. So that's a possibility. Mostly what we've come down to is just modulating the amount of THC that you take. If you can separate out the product, then you can determine which one is the right combination for you. And so people who are in a lot of pain generally have a very high dose of THC and a high concentration. So it may be 10-1 THC to CBD. Whereas somebody who is not looking for the pain, they're more of the they want anti-cancer effects. They want relaxation and coordination. Then they're going to use a 1-10 version of THC to CBD. So you can adjust the concentrations and the ratios in order to get the best effect for you. And that's one of the reasons why there's so many different cannabis varieties out there, because you can adjust the variety according to your particular need and what resonates with you. I always talk about performance. I said, I want you to use a beta caryophyllene to maximize your performance. You can do the same thing with cannabis. Find out what the best combination is, and you may have several different varieties that will, depending on your purpose. Does that answer your question?
To a degree, I think your milk thistle was interesting, but what I was trying to get to was like, is there a natural product like BCP milk thistle, which can somewhat mildly positively activate CB1 without going too far and not having to deal with cannabis, because that gets into that whole can of worm of legality and controlled substance and just so is there, just like you came across BCP and how you derive it from all the natural substances, and we have milk thistle, which you're saying is going to have the negative effect. So what I was looking for is a natural product that can have a mild positive effect on CB1, so you get those benefits that you get from THC without necessarily getting into the legality and all those issues with controlled substances, and the other part it being natural. And so I don't know if such a thing is possible, if you've seen that based on your research.
Well, there's a lot of products out, and legal cannabis right now represents a 0.3% of THC that can be in it. So you can get products over the counter or in the recreational cannabis states that have cannabis, and that you can use that quantity, and that's a very, very low ratio, and it wouldn't have any significant, should not have any significant high effects. You can also, in cannabis recreational states, you can also get varying degrees of cannabis. But other than that, other than THC effects from cannabis, I'm not really aware of any other THC or CB1 modulating substances that are out there that could stimulate and provide the same recreational or relief that THC offers.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thanks.
I'd like to also, Michael and I were talking, I don't know if this is a little off the subject, but what was it that we were talking about last night about preventative? And I was telling him, hey, I don't go to the doctor. And he's like, well, if you happen to get cancer, then it'd probably be a good idea to find it early on. And so one of the parts of the conversation is I said, maybe this could be a preventative thing so that you don't get cancer. Can you address that?
Well, yeah, I think that there are a number of different benefits for particularly beta caryophyllene, but there's also CBD that also are preventative for different types of malignancies. And also for neurodegeneration. We know that beta caryophyllene and cannabis and CBD actually prevent the neural inflammation that occurs in the body. But more than that, they actually are acting on the modifications of DNA. So these epigenetic changes that occur on the DNA that lead to a malignant transformation are actually blocked by beta caryophyllene. So it has a particular beneficial effect in preventing the distortion and the mutations that occur in different malignancies. So a great potential benefit, as well as reducing the inflammatory environment that actually the inflammatory environment was the one that sort of sets up for errors in the DNA and in the DNA copying. And so if you prevent that reactive oxygen species or the oxidation of these compounds in the body, and then you're going to reduce the chances for malignancy. So those are particular advantageous benefits. Now there's another one in terms of autophagy, and autophagy just means that it's sort of a self-eating, and the self-eating is a process that you go through to destroy deficient or defective cells and structures in the body. And both of these substances, CBD and BCP, actually modulate that particular effect very, very well, and encourage an autophagy and a self-eating and a destruction of damaged tissues. It's also probably true of senescent cells as well. So senescent cells are sort of dying cells that are not really reproducing, but they're sticking around. They actually they produce a lot of inflammatory substances. And by getting rid of those particular molecules and those particular cells, you're going to improve your health, your well-being, and you're going to modulate the potential for disease parameters that you could develop, whether it's particularly in the brain, where you've got a lot of you've got a confined space and you've got limitations of the number of cells you've got in there, but also in other organs of the body, the liver, the kidney, and the pancreas. Those are very key ingredients for rectifying these particular inflammatory conditions and preventing many diseases.
I think, thank you. Michael brought up autophagy and fasting, and I've been studying Dr. Boz, and this girl, a woman fasts like a girl, and they're talking about autophagy. So, and they're mostly into ketosis and using the keto diet. Can you address autophagy with BCP, what it does?
Well, in particular, beta caryophyllene stimulates this autophagy factor that goes in, that is activated by the body. It's through a complicated system, but it actually stimulates the receptor signaling and the nuclear receptor responses to autophagy. And so it's stimulating those particular effects on the body in a very designed way. And so it's going to have these particular benefits for actually eliminating defective mitochondria. So we've got a turnover of mitochondria all the time, and you can eliminate those defective mitochondria and improve the performance of the cellular systems. And you can also improve, and that's called mitography. And then we got autography is with the cellular format, where you're going to destroy the cellular systems and you're going to eliminate them. It's like taking out the garbage. You need to get rid of some of these malformed proteins and these different molecules that are waste products. You got to get rid of them. You've got to turn them into waste, and you've got to excrete them. But there's sometimes there's defective mechanisms, and what these drugs do, the beta caryophyllene and the cannabidiol, actually facilitate that mechanism and getting rid of those particular substances.
So thank you, Dr. Blair. So how come nobody knows about this? I mean, we've had different discussions. Is it because nobody really understands the endocannabinoid system, or how BCP or even all these other activate it?
Well, there's a lot of talk within the YouTube community about scientists that are addressing this particular problem. And resveratrol was one of the substances. And there's a number of substances that have been touted that are actually on the market as potential drugs. Rapamycin is another key factor that is included in the substances that encourage autophagy and getting rid of these particular products. So there's a lot of discussion about it. It just maybe hasn't reached the level of general knowledge and general discussion. Maybe it's too complicated, and it can be quite complicated in terms of determining what that is. Now, it includes the endocannabinoid system is involved as a signaling mechanism for the body. So we talk about the CB1, CB2 receptors and the anandamide and the 2-AG as being molecules that activate those particular receptors. But they're communications. I often call it the software of the body in terms of actually executing a number of different physiologic principles, whether that is on any of our 12 systems that we encounter, 11 systems that we have: the digestive, the endocrine, the neurologic, the immune system. All of these systems use a software system in the endocannabinoid system that has a major effect on the body. So I see it as a, rather than being a unique system, it's more of an integrated system that functions within the body. And yes, health and desirable outcomes and behaviors and endocrine are all orchestrated, can be orchestrated through the system. There are certainly many other mechanisms that are at play.
I have something to add on the topic of the talk, if I may.
Sure.
So I wasn't familiar with the term, and I'm looking it up as we speak. And this requires a longer fasting. Uh, at least I read earlier on, and I have to find it, like even intermittent fasting going past 14 hours kind of increases the body to create those human growth hormones in a natural way. I don't know if you have any thoughts, or at least I remember seeing that, which is kind of an anti-aging effect without necessarily getting the hormone treatment some people do, midlife and things like that. So I don't know if you've seen that or
Well, you've
anything
brought up a
to.
really good point, and that's one of the benefits so intermittent fasting puts you in a ketosis state, and also the ketone bodies that you generate at fasting actually are a signaling molecule for the rest of the body, and they change the metabolism of the body, and they signal the body in very constructive ways. They signal the body with regard to appetite, but they also signal it with regard to metabolism, and they are anti-inflammatory molecules as well. So fasting starts generating these ketone bodies. It also puts the gut at rest. So you're getting a relaxation and you're not getting the constant the hormonal effects for the gut. And they can be derogatory as well as stimulatory. But overall, you're getting this ketone effect after 12 or 14 hours. You're going to start producing ketone bodies, which are the major fuel for some of the colonic cells, and they can be manufactured by fiber in the gut by bacteria. But you generate the ketones from your own system by fasting, because your body's going to go for an alternative to glucose. If you're not taking in any glucose, you're not, got a source of glucose, then you're going to generate ketone bodies to supply nutrients to the cellular systems and to the brain. And in shifting over there, that's going to have this particular signaling property that's going to go on. And that's one of the beauties of beta caryophyllene, is because it actually stimulates a fasting mimicking situation. That it actually encourages the ketone formations, and it stimulates all of the benefits of a ketone bodies on the body, as well as autophagy and the other manifestations, particularly in the mitochondrial function as well. And then there's hormonal functions that also probably go into it, but we haven't defined that for beta caryophyllene. We know that there are changes. I've been looking particularly at vagal changes, the vagal nerve changes, and signaling from the beta caryophyllene, and that's going to be occurring also with fasting, and our behaviors and ketogenic diets are also going to change the signaling for the vagus nerve, and that's going to have an impact on us as well.
Isn't that what happened with Eric Hipple with his TBI? Didn't he do some kind of device that manipulated the vagal? I don't even really know what the vagal is, but I think it's important.
Well, the vagal is a very important nerve that innervates. It's a bidirectional nerve that goes into the gut and into the brain. And there's actually communications with endocannabinoid substances between the brain and the gut, and also senses changes in the gut that actually feed back to the brain. And it also there's feedback from the brain to the gut in terms of the performance and inflammation that goes on in the gut. But it also has a number of behavioral aspects. So it modulates our parasympathetic tone, our anxiety, our general relaxation, and it has a great deal to do with inflammation. So Eric was getting a vagal stimulation. Now, vagal stimulation, you can induce a number of different benefits from vagal stimulation. You can slow your heart rate by massaging your vagal nerve and the carotid bulb over here on the left side. And you can also get relaxation effects from vagus nerve, and that's basically through the parasympathetic relaxation mechanisms.
Boy, anybody want to try a question? I mean, I'm still wrestling with things like mitochondria. I mean, I understand that's the energy. I wasn't the greatest in science, but I guess that's like the little hairs in a cell, the powerhouse. I mean, and that's where we
It's
get
the
energy.
factory. The mitochondria are the factory that generates all your energy in the cell. And so that's the general and they use oxidative phosphorylation to generate that energy. So they're oxidizing different lipids and different lipid-like chemicals to generate heat and ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And that's a source of energy for our entire body.
Wow.
So
So
beta caryophyllene actually stimulates the production of more mitochondria. It creates more mitochondria. It actually stimulates their oxidative phosphorylation. So the chemistry, and it actually activates the electronic energy transfer system as well. So there's a more efficient transfer of that. And in particular, I thought this was fascinating, was that it generates uncoupling protein. Now, uncoupling protein are the ones that actually leak the energy out of the cell, out of the mitochondria to form heat. And so they're actually heat generating in the mitochondria. And that heat energy is sort of wasted energy. But it means that your body's going to use greater metabolism and you're going to burn up more calories, particularly lipids, from the circulation, because beta caryophyllene also stimulates the release of lipids from fat cells. So you're going to get fat cell loss and you're going to get energy generation from that, and you're going to get heat generation from it. At the same time, and as I mentioned in that article when we were first on, it actually increases muscle mass. That was the amazing part. It increases activity and muscle mass.
So there you go, Michael. Your creatine combined with when you were taking BCP. Are you there, Michael?
No, I
Anyway.
don't see him. But you know, he was taking creatine, and that's a very effective agent, and it's very important in energy generation in the mitochondria, but it also is important for muscle generation and muscle development. And so creatine in combination with beta caryophyllene could be magnificent for building muscles.
Oh, geez. This is a lot to take in. Is anybody like Sheila, Diane, I see that you're on. Majel's right beside me. One of the things that I've found is that I'm prettier, okay? My face is prettier. I don't know if it's because I'm more relaxed or I don't, you know, but it seems like the wrinkles went away, but I've also been using the gel. And, you know, is that because I'm cleaning out toxins, or is it because I have to tell you, I ate some chocolate chip cookies last night, okay? So
Well, you know, Kate, it could be all of the above. You could be the gel actually increasing the amount of collagen in your skin and additional moisture. It could be a thickening of the skin and an elimination of wrinkles. It could be a reduction in inflammation. It could be your mood and relaxation. So beta caryophyllene relaxes the muscles, puts you in a parasympathetic relaxation state. So you're going to relax. You're going to be more friendly. You're going to be more expressive. You're going to have more emotion. And you're going to have a better mood, and that's also going to change your general appearance and your general perception of your appearance. That you're going to be in a better mood, and you're going to look at yourself in a better way. Now, you also may have skin changes, and you may have inflection changes in your voice that could and mood changes, particularly a relief of depression and anxiety. So all these factors could be playing a role in your appearance and your beauty.
well, thank you. And I haven't taken any today. I got up, ran out the door, and then went over to this veteran thing. But I had a cup of coffees, and then I had another coffee. And it was interesting because as I was driving back, I had some thoughts in my mind, and I found myself tearing up and sort of crying because, to tell you the truth, I'm so appreciative of this conversation, and it feels like it shifted things within our family even. And Kaylin, she's not on, but she was saying to me, Kate, my life is so good right now. And she carries the bottle around like I do. And she said, I'm doing more faith-based things. My life is just, I'm really happy, I'm positive. But she's also doing some things like I think she's not drinking, and I think she's also working out, because every time I call her, she's like, I'm in line at the gym for the for the weight thing. So can you address coffee and also what happens when we do a little bit of exercise? Like, how can we maybe speed this up a little bit, enhance it? Yeah. Major's like, how can we enhance what it is that we're taking?
In terms of beta caryophyllene, and how can you
and
enhance
coffee and coffee and exercise and diet.
I think that anytime you working with the endocannabinoid system and getting a blend of the endocannabinoids, you can get some benefits from it. And there are other substances that it really enhances. Things like curcumin and ginger can enhance the endocannabinoid system. And by doing that, you're going to stimulate other benefits from from caryophyllene. Because the beta caryophyllene is upregulating the endocannabinoid system, so anything that works on the endocannabinoid system is actually going to be upregulated. So you can take other herbs, you can take other spices, and coffee and caffeine has a particular stimulatory factor that encourages mood effects and energy and activation of mitochondrial function. So all of these things can work together. You just have to find the right combination that really works best for you. So I've been experimenting with other substances and trying out some different things and some other terpenes as well as CBD and some low-level THC can all be beneficial for you, but you just have to find out what that combination is and what works best.
Okay, thank you. Could you explain terpenes again? Because that's a really interesting, I don't even know what a terpene is, but I know it's a very interesting part in our body. Or do we manufacture it in our body?
No, we don't manufacture it. Terpenes are manufactured by plants typically, and the terpene molecule is a small oil molecule. It usually is about 15 to 20 carbons. It's in different patterns. There are sort of monoterpenes, and then there are sesquiterpenes. Sesquiterpenes are 15 carbons in them, and so they represent some different structures. There's probably 1,000 different terpenes, and they're found in most of the food products that we encounter. And a lot of the benefits from the foods, let's say ginger and curcumin, they have particular terpenes that are particularly valuable. And then hemp also produces a number of key terpenes that can have major benefits on the body. And so these are simple oil molecules, but these oil molecules are signaling molecules for the body. And because they are oil-based, they pass through many of our membranes very effectively. Now, getting them into the body can be a challenge because you've got to get them to pass through the mucous membranes, and they're not water soluble, so they can tend to lie in a lump. But if you're taking them with other oils, then they can be fairly well absorbed and get into the body and provide a number of analgesic effects, mood effects. Look, lavender is a terpene as well. And myrcene is something that's commonly found in avocado and in a number of different vegetables, and and I believe it's also found in grapefruit. And so you take those in and you absorb those very nicely, and you can have different significant effects from it. And in hemp, you've got the number of different cultivars that occur, and then they have different balances of these terpene and fat molecules, and you can absorb those in different ways, and you get different benefits from the different cultivars or the varieties of hemp by taking in a different combination.
Geez, this is really wonderful. Sheila, I know we were having some different conversations about going back to the autophagy and fasting, and you were saying, boy, you're kind of thin and you don't really want to get into fasting. My stepmother was saying she doesn't really want to do fasting. And, you know, and we're kind of going back. But anyway, Sheila, do you have a question to Dr. Blair? Because you've been taking it now, and how are you doing? You're on mute. Okay, go ahead.
I'm doing well. Like I told you on private calls, I'm helping on a missing persons case that is taking up a lot of my time. And I feel like I think it's helping to support me at a difficult time with what I'm going through. I'm doing good considering what's going on. So
do you have
I think
questions
it's
about
helping.
do you have any questions about fasting or a ketogenic diet or anything like that?
Well, I have studied the ketogenic diet in detail because my oldest has epilepsy, and she did the ketogenic diet for 2 years. It reduced her seizures by 85%. And then I feel that helped her be able to be controlled with a medication. The only reason I don't do fasting, and I was telling Kate, I feel like I need to eat high protein throughout the day because I have a tendency to get too thin. So is fasting bad for somebody that is thin?
I think you need to get in enough calories. You need to get in enough protein for your body. There's different, and you need to get a balance of substances to come in. But you can, I don't think that you can, I really don't think you can get too thin unless you're not eating. If you're caloric deficient, then you could get too thin. But if you're not caloric deficient, then you're not going to get too thin. You're just going to get down to your peripheral fat levels and your visceral fat levels that are going to be minimized. And so that might be down to less than, like 18% or 16% of your body fat. But that's not a bad thing. That's actually a healthy thing. We know that peripheral and visceral fat can be inflammatory. And so if you eliminate that inflammation, you're going to get into a good state. You just have to be mindful of the amount of muscle and the amount of exercise and the amount of energy that you require in order to maintain yourself. I really don't think that people can be too thin. Except for caloric restriction and starvation. Other than that, I don't believe it happens.
Okay, I understand that. And I probably need to take more calories in if I was fasting. I would need to get more calories in that window. And I think I just haven't had enough time.
Ideally, that's going to come from high protein and high fat foods. Most of the people that I've experienced with have done very, very well, and particularly women do very, very well on a high fat and a high protein diet. And that could be meat, or it could be eggs, or it could be fish, whatever you use, and then take a smattering of vegetables along with it. And that's the ideal form of diet that will extend your longevity very particularly, and your benefits, and your mood and your inflammation.
Sounds good. I'll
Hey,
continue to look at that.
With that, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to go. I've got an appointment I've got to make, and I've got a limited time to get there. It's been delightful talking to you and discussing with it, and I hope I've answered a number of your questions effectively. We'll carry on the discussion next week, I think.
And absolutely. And can you give us an update? You've got some capsules that we can order, and what are we still another couple of weeks before we get the
Best I can
Liposomal.
tell, we got capsules available. They're immediately available, but the liposomal product, we just don't have any in production. I think it's going to be at least a couple more weeks. I'm waiting for words on that and defining when it's going to be released and when we're going to be able to get it in our hands. As soon as we get it, as soon as we know the date, we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Blair. If anybody wants to stay on and we just have a conversation after he leaves, that's fine with me.
Okay, I'm going to end the recording.
Okay,